Hey, what's up, gentlemen and ladies? Happy International Romani Day. So some of you guys may recall that in the last real video that I did, I was talking about the fact that I wanted to catch up on some viewer-suggested topics for videos, and out of all of the ones, I don't think that there is one that people have asked me to cover more than Final Fantasy Versus 13 DLC for Final Fantasy 15. So many people have asked me to cover this, and so many people want this to be in the game, and you know, for a bunch of different reasons, I basically am making this video once and for all to tell you guys, please stop asking for Versus DLC. Stop asking Tabata, stop asking Square and all these different people, not because it won't happen, let me make that clear. I always have to put this warning because I know that if Versus DLC ever happens to be announced, people are gonna come back to this video and be like, oh, Dean, you were wrong, even though I'm not saying that it's not gonna happen, I'm just saying that it shouldn't happen. Why though? Other than, I mean, just to go against what everybody's saying, because that's always Dean, right? I do actually have several reasons, but before I get started, let me just say, I get it, okay? I understand why people want this to be a thing. Now, yes, we do know that more DLC is coming in the future. I mean, obviously, what's going to be in the Season Pass is coming out. I'm pretty sure the only things that are missing from that are Episode Prompto, Episode Ignis, and the multiplayer expansion that we're going to be getting. But outside of that, they have already confirmed that we will be getting more DLC. We're not exactly sure what that's going to be, whether that's going to be more character DLC, more add-ons, more quests, more anything really, or maybe some kind of Versus DLC. We don't know. And I understand why people would want something like this. I'm not gonna pretend like I haven't gone back and looked at the Versus trailers and thought about what could have been and how cool it would actually be to have gotten to play through Final Fantasy Versus 13. Here's the thing though, Final Fantasy Versus 13 is never going to be a game. As much as some people wanted to be and some people want them to redo 15 as Versus 13 or something, I don't really know how people want it to happen. That's not gonna happen. So the best thing that we can basically hope for is Versus DLC, but what a lot of people are not really thinking about is the fact that that wouldn't really work either, because all of the aspects that people liked about Versus 13 for completely different reasons and all this different kind of stuff would not really apply in a Versus DLC. First, there's the issue of where exactly something like this would be. Now, if we're going off the assumption that this is just going to be something completely separate from the main game that has nothing to do with it, well, at that point, why even make it, really? I mean, basically, you would just be making a separate game that would be Versus 13, and like I already said, that's not really going to happen. Watch that be announced in like 2 weeks. But in the game itself, it wouldn't really fit. Now, there is one spot that I have heard a lot of people say where it could possibly, theoretically happen, where it would kind of make the most sense. Like, it still wouldn't make sense, but it would make the most sense out of any other place in the game, really. And that would be, spoilers, by the way, if you haven't played Final Fantasy 15, obviously, in between Chapter 13 and Chapter 14, where Noctis goes to sleep as a, basically, I guess, Chapter 13.5, where you get to see inside Noctis's dreams during the 10 years while he was in a deep slumber. But as much as I keep thinking about this, and as much as I keep basically trying to come up with scenarios where it would make sense for the stuff that happened in the old Versus trailer to happen in 15 and it still keep all of the meaning that it had back then, I just can't, really. Like, picture for a second that Versus episode, whatever you want to call it, gets announced, like tomorrow. And then it comes out like next week, and it's free for everybody, and you download it on your PS4, your Xbox, whatever you have, you go to play it. What is it? Like, honestly think to yourself, how would it start? And what would happen in that DLC. Now, the only thing that comes to mind for me is us going through a bunch of different scenarios from the Versus trailers that don't mean anything, that don't have any connection to the final game, and that nobody would understand who didn't watch those old Versus trailers. It would just be a bunch of random scenes happening for no reason, really. All of the aspects that people liked about those trailers and those moments and those scenes would not mean anything. Like, let's take probably the single most iconic one, the fight between Noctis and Stella that nobody likes to shut up about in my Stella versus Luna video. I guess it's my own fault for making that video, but anyways, I should point out that obviously I have not played what was going to be Versus 13, so I don't know what they were planning on putting in there, but from what most people have gathered and what is generally accepted to be the story of that game, the reason why people like that scene is because Noctis and Stella were forced to fight each other even though they were childhood friends. Noctis was trying to defend his kingdom and his crystal and everything that it stood for, along with with his father and all of his friends, while Stella was trying to take it to protect her people, because in the world of Versus, everybody except for Lucis was fucked, because they didn't have the magic of the crystal, and they wanted to take Lucis's so that they could do, like, whatever it was that they wanted to do with it. Just make lives better for themselves, and she cared about her people that much that she was willing to fight one of her best friends for it. Now, how would this make sense in Final Fantasy XV? Well, it wouldn't. Firstly, because they completely retconned the fact that everybody else was fucked because they lost their crystals. In fact, I don't even think it's canon that the other kingdoms had crystals at any point anymore. They don't mention it at any point in the game. Like, you go to Altissia and you're like, damn, you guys are doing fucking better than we were. Why do you want the crystal? And of course, if this was with Luna, presumably, because they're not just gonna randomly add a character named Stella with no reason, because again, it wouldn't make sense for anybody that didn't watch it. I'm just repeating myself at this point, really. They wouldn't have that connection there, because Noctis and Luna pretty much met each other for like, what, a week when they were like 14 and 13 years old, and then they didn't see each other again for another 10 years. Like, yeah, they wrote to themselves, but their connection is not going to be as close as the one for Noctis and Stella presumably, allegedly was, as some people like to theorize. Once again, we'll never actually know, but that's just what a lot of people would like to think was going to happen back in Versus. Or let's take another example. Yakuza Regis, the design that everybody loved way more, and to be honest, like I said, I can understand why. It was pretty cool seeing this king of a nation not be a traditional stereotypical king like Regis was in the final game. He ran his city like the mafia, and who the hell doesn't want to play as a super rich badass mob boss son? Like, it's a cool concept, I gotta admit. But how would that make any sense in Final Fantasy XV? Like, would in like Noctis's head just forget who Regis was and then have it be different for this one scene? But again, it wouldn't mean anything because it was just for the one scene or the one part of the game. And as we all know, Regis died in Kingsglaive. But speaking of Kingsglaive, actually, that was where the entire invasion took place. Noctis was not even present, and that was one of the other major aspects of Versus 13. For the longest time, all that we got to see was the Lucis invasion from Niflheim, and Noctis fighting all the different obstacles that they had coming to the city. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's all they had for the game at some point, and that didn't even end up being in the final game because they cut it out to put in the movie. Noctis was not even present, so it would not make sense for him to be dreaming about something that he was not there for. I guess you could pass it off as like, oh, he dreamt that he was there and that he could protect them, but again, it wouldn't make any sense because Regis died anyways, and Luna was still taken. I mean, it wasn't right then, it was afterwards because she did get away at the end of the movie regardless. And the city still fell, so Kingsglaive was basically a failure all around other than the fact that Luna didn't die. That was pretty much it. I think that something like episode Kingsglaive could work way better for something like this. And again, people could pass it off as like, oh, Bahamut is like testing Noctis and he's putting him through these like trials to see what he would do and how he would react, but what would be the point of that? I mean, he's going to return to Insomnia anyways. He's gonna have to defend it and kill the person who did this to the city regardless. Why show him his failure beforehand? He's gonna get to see it anyways, and it's not like he's gonna succeed because then, again, it wouldn't make any sense because he didn't succeed. They did take the city. What else is there? I mean, do you guys just want like the Noctis and Stella dinner party talking scene to be in the game? Yes, they could throw that in. Once again, won't mean anything. It won't have the feeling or the emotion of the original, but it'll be there just for the fanboys, I guess. And then it would all be very disjunct and like not connected at all. I could actually picture them literally just going scene by scene, all the different Versus scenarios that we got to miss out, to be like, there, is this what you wanted? Are you happy? Which is obviously not what people wanted. The point that I'm trying to get at is that Versus was a completely different game, and trying to recreate that with 15 is just gonna end up in failure. If they weren't competent enough to put the story of 15 in 15, what makes you think that they'll be able to execute Versus well, especially in just a single DLC? Presuming that that is what they end up doing, because that is what most people keep saying. They could do it in some other way that I probably haven't heard of, but most of the people that I hear keep asking for some kind of DLC or update or something along those lines. I just can't see this working out in any way. Like, any possibility of Versus being in 15 that I could possibly think of ends just bad, or just like them half-assing it and sort of attempting to try and pander to the fanboys, but ultimately failing. I have no clue how they would do it, but you know what? I will gladly be proven wrong if they do end up making a successful Versus DLC. I just don't think that they would, so I don't think that we should keep asking for one. There is better things that Tabata and his team could be doing with their time, in my opinion, but I guess let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. Either way though, I guess that's all that I have for you guys today. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to blitz that like button, subscribe as always. Stay tuned for all things Final Fantasy See you guys.